The crystal glasses clinked as my sister Katherine raised another toast at our family's annual reunion. To success, she declared, her designer bracelet catching the light. And to those of us who actually achieved it. Her eyes found me across the table, lips curving into that familiar condescending smile. I sat quietly in my simple black dress, sipping water while the rest of my family celebrated with expensive champagne. "Madison," my mother called out, her voice dripping with false concern. "Sweetheart, are you still working as a secretary at that little company? What was it called again?" "Phoenix Industries," I replied calmly, thinking about the stack of acquisition papers waiting on my desk. My real desk, not the modest reception area where my family thought I spent my days answering phones. "A secretary," Katherine laughed, adjusting her Cartier watch. "For 10 years. While the rest of us have real careers. I mean, I just made partner at Goldman Sachs, and Thomas here," she gestured to our brother, "is CFO of Merit Technologies." I thought about the documents I'd signed yesterday, papers that would soon make Phoenix Industries the majority shareholder in Merit Technologies, though Thomas didn't know that yet. My little company had spent the past decade quietly becoming one of the largest technology investment firms in the country. "Speaking of careers," Thomas chimed in, "Katherine, didn't you just close that massive deal with Phoenix Industries? Something about software development." Katherine preened. "Oh yes, a $300 million contract. Though I doubt Maddie here understands numbers that big. She probably just gets coffee for the executives who make the real decisions." If only they knew that I had personally approved that contract, watching Katherine present to my board while having no idea her secretary's sister was actually the CEO they were so desperate to impress. "I get by," I said softly, remembering the Forbes article sitting on my desk that named me one of the most influential women in tech under my professional name, MJ Phoenix, of course. "Gets by," my father scoffed. "Madison, you had so much potential. Stanford Business School, and this is what you do with it? Answer phones while your siblings change the world." I let his words wash over me, thinking about the empire I'd built while they were busy underestimating me. Phoenix Industries operated through a complex web of subsidiaries and shell corporations, with my true identity carefully hidden from public records. "Remember when Maddie tried to give us investment advice last Christmas?" Katherine giggled. As if a secretary would know anything about market strategy. My investment advice would have tripled their portfolios, but they dismissed it immediately. Just like they dismissed every suggestion I'd made over the past decade. "Well," my mother sighed dramatically, "at least you have a stable job. Though I don't know how you survive in that tiny apartment on a secretary's salary." My tiny apartment was actually the entire top floor of the city's most exclusive residential building owned by one of my shell companies. But they'd never visited. They'd stopped including me in family gatherings years ago, except for these obligatory annual reunions where they could showcase their supposed superiority. "Actually," Thomas announced importantly, "speaking of success, I have big news. Merit Technologies is about to launch a revolutionary new software platform. It'll change the entire industry." I took another sip of water, knowing that Merit's platform was already obsolete. Phoenix Industries had developed something far more advanced months ago. "That's wonderful," my mother gushed. "See, Madison? That's what real success looks like." Katherine leaned forward, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You know, Maddie, I could probably find you a position at Goldman. Something more respectable than being a secretary. Though you'd have to learn to dress better." She glanced dismissively at my simple outfit, unaware that it cost more than her entire wardrobe. "Thank you," I replied politely, "but I'm happy where I am." "Happy?" my father snorted. "Getting coffee and answering phones? While your brother and sister are changing the world. You're a disappointment, Madison. A waste of a Stanford education." I thought about my real office, the entire top floor of Phoenix Tower with its panoramic views and staff of hundreds. About the meetings where I'd approved billion-dollar acquisitions while Katherine and Thomas pitched their ideas, never realizing the quiet woman in the corner was actually the CEO they were trying to impress. "Oh," Katherine exclaimed suddenly. "That reminds me, I have an interview at Phoenix Industries next week. They're looking for a new head of global strategy. Though I'm practically guaranteed the position. The CEO practically begged to meet me after my last presentation." I smiled slightly, remembering that presentation. Katherine had been competent but arrogant, dismissing input from anyone she deemed beneath her, including her secretary sister who actually owned the company. Another success story, my mother beamed. While poor Madison will probably be serving coffee at the interview. If they only knew that I had orchestrated this entire situation. Merit Technologies was failing, their revolutionary platform was a desperate last attempt to stay relevant. Thomas would soon be looking for a job too. And Katherine's position at Goldman was far less secure than she realized, especially after Phoenix Industries withdrew several major accounts. My phone buzzed quietly, a message from my executive assistant, Sarah. Everything's set for next week. Board approval confirmed for the Merit acquisition. Your sister's interview is scheduled for Tuesday at 9 a.m. I excused myself from the table, unnoticed as usual. Walking to my car, I heard Katherine's laugh float through the restaurant windows. Can you believe Maddie? Still stuck in the same dead-end job after 10 years? What a waste. In my real office later that night, I reviewed the files for next week's meetings. Katherine's interview would be just the beginning. By the end of the month, both my siblings would learn that their secretary sister had built something far greater than their combined achievements. Confirm the photographers for Tuesday, I instructed Sarah over the phone. I want to capture every moment when Katherine realizes who really runs Phoenix Industries. I picked up the latest Forbes magazine from my desk, my hidden identity featured on the cover as one of the most powerful CEOs in technology. Sometimes success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about waiting for the perfect moment to reveal who you really are. Opening my laptop, I reviewed Katherine's application for the strategy position. She was qualified technically. But her arrogance, her tendency to underestimate others, her treatment of those she considered beneath her, those were flaws no executive training could fix. I pulled up the surveillance footage from her last presentation, watching as she dismissed suggestions from lower-level employees, including her own sister. She had no idea that every arrogant comment, every condescending gesture, was being noted by the CEO she was so desperate to impress. Sarah, I called my assistant again, make sure the conference room cameras are working perfectly for Tuesday. I want to capture every second of Katherine's face when she realizes who her secretary sister really is. Looking out over the city skyline from my office window, I thought about the past decade. Every mockery, every dismissal, every family gathering where they treated me like a failure, it had all led to this moment. Tuesday morning would change everything. Katherine would discover that the sister she'd mocked for 10 years wasn't just an employee at Phoenix Industries, she owned it. The company she'd been desperately trying to impress was built by the very person she'd dismissed as worthless. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold, it's served with a corner office and a CEO nameplate. The real game was about to begin. Tuesday morning dawned clear and bright. I arrived at Phoenix Tower at 7 a.m., taking my private elevator to the executive floor. Sarah waited with my schedule and a knowing smile. Katherine arrived 45 minutes early, she reported. She's been practicing her power poses in the lobby bathroom. And Thomas? I asked, knowing my brother would try to support Katherine's interview. Showed up 10 minutes ago trying to throw his weight around as Merit's CFO. If only he knew Merit would belong to us by the end of the week. I changed into my CEO attire, a perfectly tailored Chanel suit that cost more than Katherine's monthly salary. Gone was the simple dress from the family reunion, replaced by the image of power I usually kept hidden from my family. How long has she been waiting? I asked, reviewing the lobby security feed. Almost an hour now. She's mentioned her Goldman Sachs position approximately 12 times to the receptionist. I smiled, remembering all the times Katherine had bragged about her success while mocking my secretary position. Let's not keep her waiting any longer. The interview was scheduled in our main conference room, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Through the glass walls, I could see Katherine pacing nervously, her designer suit carefully chosen to impress. Thomas sat nearby, playing with his phone while trying to look important. Ready? Sarah asked, holding the folder containing Katherine's application. One more thing, I said, picking up a familiar document, the contract Katherine had pitched to Phoenix Industries months ago, the one where she'd completely ignored her secretary sister's presence. I took a deep breath and pushed open the conference room doors. The conversation stopped abruptly. Katherine and Thomas turned, their expressions morphing from anticipation to confusion to absolute shock. Madison. Thomas stood up so quickly he knocked over his water glass. What are you doing here? This is a private interview. Get out, Katherine hissed, her professional facade cracking. This is important. I'm meeting with the CEO. Yes, I said calmly, walking to the head of the table. You are. What are you talking about? Katherine's voice had lost its usual condescending tone, replaced by growing uncertainty. I placed my briefcase on the table, the sound echoing in the suddenly silent room. I'm MJ Phoenix, I said quietly. Founder and CEO of Phoenix Industries. Though you know me better as your secretary's sister. The silence that followed was deafening. Katherine's face had gone pale, while Thomas seemed to have forgotten how to breathe. This is impossible, Katherine finally stammered. Phoenix Industries is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're a secretary. Actually, I smiled, nodding to Sarah, who began distributing folders to everyone present. I'm both. Every contract you've pitched, every presentation you've made, every time you dismissed the quiet secretary in the corner, you were actually talking to the CEO you were so desperate to impress. Thomas frantically flipped through the documents, his CFO training kicking in. These acquisition papers. Merit Technologies, you're buying us out. Through various subsidiaries, yes. I took my seat at the head of the table. By the end of the week, Merit Technologies will be a wholly owned subsidiary of Phoenix Industries. That revolutionary software platform you've been bragging about. We developed something better months ago. But your apartment, your clothes. Katherine's voice was barely a whisper. My tiny apartment is the penthouse of Phoenix Tower. Those shabby clothes you mocked? Custom-made by designers who won't even take your calls. While you were busy bragging about your success, I built an empire. My father burst through the door, his face red with anger. Obviously, Thomas had texted him. What kind of game is this, Madison? He demanded. No game, I replied calmly. Just the truth you were too blind to see. Would you like to know your daughter's real net worth, Dad? The one you called a disappointment. This is ridiculous, Katherine found her voice, though it shook slightly. You can't be. I mean, I've met with Phoenix Industries executives dozens of times. Yes, you have. And each time you made it very clear how you treat people you consider beneath you. Every condescending comment, every dismissive gesture, all noted by the CEO you thought you were impressing. We can fight this, Thomas declared, though his voice lacked conviction. The Merit Board already approved the acquisition this morning, I interrupted. They were quite eager to accept our offer, especially after seeing the comparison between your platform and ours. Katherine's perfectly maintained facade finally cracked completely. So what happens now? You destroy everything we've built. No, I said firmly. I'm going to fix it. Merit Technologies will be restructured. As for your job application, Katherine. I picked up her resume. Your qualifications are impressive. But your attitude, your treatment of others, your assumption that success only looks one way, those are fatal flaws no executive training can fix. You can't reject me, she whispered. I'm your sister. Yes, I am. The same sister you mocked for 10 years. The same sister you called a failure at every family gathering. The same sister you didn't even bother to invite to your promotion party because, and I quote, secretaries wouldn't understand the significance. My father stepped forward, his authority completely evaporated. Madison, be reasonable. We're family. Family. I stood up, buttoning my jacket. Family doesn't mock each other's achievements. Family doesn't dismiss someone's worth based on their perceived job title. Family doesn't spend a decade making someone feel worthless just because they don't fit your definition of success. I turned to the window, looking out over the city I'd quietly come to own a significant piece of. For 10 years, I built something meaningful while you were all too busy looking down on me to notice. I developed technology that changes lives, created thousands of jobs, and revolutionized an industry. But why? Katherine asked, tears smudging her perfect makeup. Why hide everything? Why let us think you were just a secretary? Because you taught me an important lesson. Success isn't about proving others wrong immediately. Sometimes it's about building something so magnificent that when they finally realize their mistake, it doesn't even matter anymore. I nodded to Sarah, who began gathering the papers. The Merit acquisition will be announced tomorrow. Thomas, your board will handle the transition details. Katherine, I'm afraid Phoenix Industries won't be requiring your services, but I hear there are some entry-level positions available in smaller firms. Entry-level, she choked. But my experience, my position at Goldman. About that, I smiled slightly. You might want to check your email. Phoenix Industries withdrew several major accounts from Goldman last week. Your position there might not be as secure as you thought. The aftermath was exactly what I expected. The business world exploded with the news that MJ Phoenix, the mysterious tech mogul, was actually Madison James, the Stanford graduate whose family thought she was just a secretary. Merit Technologies was smoothly integrated into Phoenix Industries, though Thomas was relocated to a much smaller office with significantly less authority. Katherine's position at Goldman Sachs didn't survive the loss of Phoenix Industries accounts. She spent weeks trying to find another high-level position, but word had spread about her treatment of lower-level employees. Eventually, she had to accept a middle management role at a smaller firm. My parents' social standing in their corporate circles crumbled as people learned how they'd treated their daughter. The country club they loved suddenly had no available tea times. Their dinner party invitations went unanswered. But revenge wasn't my goal. A month after the revelation, Katherine appeared at my office, my real office. I understand now, she said quietly. Success isn't about titles or corner offices. It's about building something meaningful. No, I corrected her. It's about seeing value in everyone regardless of their title or position. Every person you dismissed as just a secretary or just a clerk. They're all integral parts of something bigger. Over the next year things changed. Not dramatically but gradually. Thomas learned to value innovation over status, eventually leading a successful development team within Phoenix Industries. Katherine started her own small consulting firm, this time building real relationships instead of just chasing prestige. My father, perhaps surprisingly, became one of my strongest advocates for corporate culture change. He toured companies, speaking about the danger of assumptions and the importance of respecting every employee. Today, Phoenix Industries continues to grow, but with a different philosophy. We promote based on merit, not connections. We value input from every level of the organization. That reception desk where my family thought I worked? It's now a rotating position. Every executive, including me, spends one day each month there, remembering that every role matters. Last week, I received a message from